Welcome to our 5-minute Bible study. We are looking at the book of Revelation. You might recall from last time that we are in the midst of Revelation chapter 14. And we saw that this chapter is almost a little dramatic pause. We've seen so much transpiring. We've seen the opening of the 7 seals. We've seen the sounding of the 7 trumpets. We've seen the dragon arise forth to battle the people of God, calling forth the first beast, the spirit of Antichrist, and the second beast, the false prophet, to entice people to worship man rather than God. In the midst of all this, we've seen the 144,000, those who are the people of God, are standing with the Lamb. They will be victorious. And so as we started chapter 14, we saw there was sort of a dramatic pause before the next scenes unfold. And there were 3 angels making announcements: to fear God, worship only Him, that Babylon is going to fall. That's the first mention of Babylon, but more will come later. And that those who worship the beast will be judged. And then as we move on in chapter 14, which is what we want to look at now, we see that there is a time coming when God will harvest the world. At the end, there will be a great time of harvest. John says, "I looked, and there was a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was one like a son of man. He had a crown of gold on his head, a sharp sickle in his hand. An angel came out of the temple, called in a loud voice to him who was seated on the cloud, 'Take your sickle and reap, for the time to reap has come, for the harvest of the earth is ripe.' So he who was seated on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth. The earth was harvested." There is coming that time of harvest. John wants us to understand that in the midst of world events and the complex flow of circumstances, oftentimes when the beast seems to be in control, God really is. He's on the throne. And the time of harvest will come. And this kind of reminds us of what Jesus said in the Gospels. You remember He said, "The day will come when I will send forth my angels, and they will harvest the world. And they will separate the wheat from the weeds." The wheat are those who believe. The weeds are those who are in rebellion. The wheat will be gathered into the eternal barn to enjoy the blessings of God. The weeds, the tares, will be consumed with fire. Judgment will come. So you see, the final harvest is a time both of the final redemption of God's people and the final judgment of those who will not believe. It is both redemption and judgment. Notice John goes on. The angel came out of the temple in heaven. He had a sharp sickle. And another angel who had charge of the fire came from the altar and called in a loud voice to the one who had the sickle, "Take your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of grape from the earth's vine, for the grapes are ripe." So the angel swung his sickle on the earth. He gathered the grapes and threw them into the great winepress of God's wrath. They were trampled in the winepress outside of the city. The blood flowed out of the press, rising as high as the horse's bridle, for a distance of 1,600 stadia. It's quite a powerful image of judgment. And it's to let us know that when the final harvest comes, God's people will be gathered into eternal glory in His judgment. But there will be a day of final judgment for those who are in rebellion. That is, those who ally themselves with the false Christ, the beast, with the false prophet. That's wrong religion. That harvest of judgment will come. You see, God makes it clear that He will not allow sin to endure forever. He will not allow rebellion to go on forever. God is patient, giving us time to repent, calling us back home. But there will come a time when the end will be announced. And so John sees that very clearly. The harvest will come. So there's a word there, a word of hope for the church. For when the harvest comes, it will be a day of utter redemption. But it's a word of warning for those who are outside the grace of God, a warning to come home, to accept His offer of forgiveness, and to return to Him. Come home before the time of harvest, so you'll be safe in God's care. So we have this powerful, powerful image. The day of harvest will come. Now, next time we'll move into chapter 15, and we're ready for another scene. We're ready for the great bowls of God's wrath to be poured out, which represents in some sense the completion of the judgment. We've already seen the 7 seals. We've already seen the 7 trumpets. Now the 7 bowls of judgment are about to be poured out, which is the climactic moment of God's judgment. You see how that is tied in with that scene of harvest. But we'll look at that next time. And so today you have a great day. Rejoice in the fact that you belong to God. One day He will harvest you into a kingdom of eternal glory. So stay faithful, stay in His love, and know the wonder of His blessing. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.